What if the hardest thing you're going through right now isn't proof that your life is falling apart, but evidence that you're being strengthened? Because here's something I want you to think about today. You can experience hard life moments without deciding that life is happening to you. There's a subtle difference. You have a difficult morning and you think, of course this is happening to me. Why does everything have to be so hard? Why can't anything just be easy? I can't do this anymore. And suddenly your brain isn't just dealing with the problem, it's fighting the fact that the problem even exists. And that's exhausting because now you're fighting your circumstances, fighting your emotions, fighting your kids, fighting your schedule, and fighting the thought that your life shouldn't be this hard. But what if we changed the question? What if instead of, why is this happening to me? You asked, what is this experience trying to teach me? What if instead of seeing this season as something that's breaking you, you saw it as something that's building you? Welcome to Conquer Mom Stress, the podcast that helps you stress less and enjoy motherhood more. If you've ever crawled into bed at night completely exhausted, but still feel like there's so much left to do, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Jill Gokul, and I believe that motherhood is meant to feel joyful, not exhausting. Together, we'll uncover what's really fueling your stress and give you the practical tools to conquer it so you can finally feel like the confident mom you were made to be. Also, if you have a specific question or issue you're stressing about, head over to jillgokul.com/ask to submit your question. And who knows, you might just be featured in an upcoming episode so you can get practical, real-world solutions to the exact challenges you're facing. Think about one of those days when absolutely nothing goes according to plan. You wake up late, someone can't find their shoes, someone else refuses to get dressed, the baby's crying, you're already behind, then you realize you forgot to put something in someone's lunchbox, you spill coffee on your shirt, your phone starts buzzing, you have an appointment later, and you're thinking about dinner even though it's only 7:42 in the morning. And somewhere in the middle of all this, you have that thought. Why does everything have to be so hard? Maybe you've had that thought. I know I have. And here's what I've realized. Sometimes the actual problem isn't nearly exhausting as your resistance to the problem. The kids are arguing. That's hard. But then when your brain says, they shouldn't be arguing, I shouldn't have to deal with this, I can't believe I'm dealing with this again. Not only are you now dealing with the arguing, but you're also fighting reality. And when you're fighting reality, your body goes into fight or flight mode. Your heart speeds up, your muscles tense, your patience disappears. Your thoughts become more negative. And suddenly you're reacting to a stressful situation as though you're under attack. This is what can happen when you develop a victim mentality around your struggles. Now, I want to be careful with that phrase. I'm not talking about someone who has genuinely experienced trauma, abuse, injustice, or circumstances outside their control. Those situations deserve compassion, support, and appropriate help. I'm talking about something much more ordinary, the everyday struggles of motherhood, the toddler who won't cooperate, the teenager who pushes back, the messy house, the unexpected bill, the schedule that falls apart, the difficult conversation, the sleepless nights, the child who needs more from you than you expected. The season that simply feels hard. And your brain says, this shouldn't be this hard. That's the moment you can get stuck. Because when you believe life shouldn't be difficult, every difficulty feels like an injustice. So instead of, this is hard, I can figure it out, you think, this is hard and I shouldn't have to deal with this. Instead of curiosity, you experience frustration. Instead of creativity, you experience helplessness. And then instead of wondering what you can do, you're wondering, why is this happening to me? Those two questions take you in completely different directions. Here's something that I want to clearly point out. The Bible never promised us a life without struggle. In fact, Scripture tells us the opposite. Jesus says in John chapter 16, verse 33, in this world, you will have trouble, but take courage. I have conquered the world. Notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, If you follow me, everything will become easy. He says, you will have trouble. That's probably not exactly the inspirational coffee mug you were hoping for. But then he gives you the rest. Take courage. I have conquered the world. The promise isn't that you won't have problems. The promise is you don't have to face your problems alone. And Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 4 gives another perspective. We even boast of our afflictions, knowing that affliction produces endurance, and endurance, proven character, and proven character, hope. Look at that progression. Affliction produces endurance. Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. The struggle isn't necessarily wasted. God can use it. Think about a diamond. A diamond doesn't become a diamond because it spends its entire existence comfortable. It's formed under enormous pressure. Difficult seasons can shape you. They can teach you patience. They can expose places where you need boundaries. They can teach you to ask for help. They can reveal your need for God. They can make you more compassionate towards other people. They can teach you that you're stronger than you thought. Sometimes the season you're desperately trying to escape is the season developing something greater inside of you. Friend, you are being stretched. And stretching isn't always comfortable, but it does make you stronger. Now, while that's all fine and dandy, sometimes we need a little science to back up what we're saying. So here's what I want you to understand. When you have that victim mentality that things shouldn't be this hard, your brain perceives a threat. So your body's stress response activates. Your sympathetic nervous system helps prepare you to fight, flight, or respond to a danger. That's incredibly helpful when you're actually in danger, but your brain doesn't only respond to physical threats. It also responds to perceived threats. And sometimes the perceived threat is simply thinking that this isn't how your life is supposed to be. Your brain interprets the situation as something that needs to be fought. So instead of simply solving the problem, you become emotionally activated by the fact that the problem exists. That's why you can be sitting in your kitchen thinking, I cannot believe I have to clean this house again. And suddenly your shoulders are tense, your jaw is tight, your heart's racing, your thoughts are spiraling. Nothing dangerous happened, but your body is acting like it needs to fight its way out. That's the exhausting part of victim thinking. You're not just carrying the problem, you are resisting reality. When you repeatedly tell yourself that your life shouldn't be this hard, you can start feeling powerless. You stop looking for solutions because your brain is focused on how fair the situation feels. You lose energy, you become more irritable, you have less patience, and then things blow way out of proportion as you think, if this is how it's always going to be, I can't do this. Your children are learning how to interpret difficulty by watching you. Your kids are going to experience frustration in life. They're going to fail. They're going to be disappointed. They'll have difficult relationships and are going to experience things they don't understand. They don't need a mom who's teaching them life is supposed to be easy. They need a mom who teaches them that hard things happen, but you can handle hard things. Okay, here's a silly example. Imagine your child spills something. You could react, ugh, why does everything have to be so hard? Or you could react with, okay, that's frustrating, but let's clean it up. It's the same mess, but completely different lessons. One teaches helplessness, the other teaches resilience. One says problems are proof that something's wrong and unfair, while the other says problems are just something that you can work through. Listen, the goal isn't to become a mom who loves every difficult moment. Let's be realistic. You don't have to enjoy the 45th toddler meltdown. You don't have to celebrate the broken washing machine. You don't have to be grateful that your child woke up at 3 a.m. The goal is not thinking everything is wonderful no matter what. The goal is that even when things are hard, you can handle hard things. And even more importantly, you can start wondering what it can actually teach you. That question opens up a completely different part of your brain. Instead of fight or flight, you move toward curiosity. so that instead of helplessness, you're moving into creativity. You're not thinking, why me? You're thinking, what now? So what if you stopped asking God to make every difficult season disappear and started asking Him to show you how to grow through it? Because sometimes God doesn't immediately change the circumstances. Sometimes He changes you inside the circumstance. That's where some of the deepest growth happens. In James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, it says, "Consider it all joy, my brothers, when you encounter various trials, for you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Now, I want to clarify something. James isn't saying pretend your problems aren't painful. He's calling you to realize what God can produce through your problems. You can still be sad while being hopeful. You can still be exhausted while being grateful. You can cry and still trust God. You can think that something's really hard while also standing on the belief that God is with you through it. Those aren't contradictions. Those are faith. This is why I love the example of the Apostle Paul. Paul was in prison, and yet while imprisoned, he wrote words of joy and encouragement. Philippians chapter 4, verse 4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice." Always? You have to wonder, how can you always rejoice? But listen, everything wasn't going perfectly for Paul when he wrote this. He was in prison, and he's talking about rejoicing. He wasn't pretending that prison was fun, but he was choosing where to place his attention. He could have focused entirely on what had been taken away, but instead, he focused on what God was still doing. His circumstances didn't have the final word. And in Philippians chapter 1, verse 12, Paul says, "I want you to know, brothers, that my situation has turned out to be a means of advancing the gospel." His prison became his platform. His obstacle became an opportunity. His limitation became a place where God was at work. And friend, what if you could start looking at your own struggles that way? Not thinking about how it's ruining your life, but wondering what God can build in you through this. Psalms 110 verse 1 says, "Sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool." Those struggles in your life, God can turn them into your footstool, something that you can stand on to reach up higher in life. Now, I'm not saying your difficult circumstances are literally your enemies, but think about the principle. The thing that feels like it's pressing you down can become something that elevates you. Your stressful season can teach you boundaries. Your parenting struggle can teach you patience. Your exhaustion can teach you how to ask for help. Your uncertainty can teach you to trust in God more deeply. And your failure can teach you humility. The pressure doesn't have to crush you. You can literally use it as a footstool. Some of the hardest moments in my own life have caused my faith to grow beyond what I would have ever imagined. I've learned what it means to be like Elijah in the cave. In 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah experiences wind, an earthquake, fire. But God wasn't in those dramatic displays. Then came the gentle whisper. And that's where God was. That's such a beautiful picture of what happens when life becomes chaotic. Sometimes God doesn't remove the chaos immediately. Sometimes He teaches you to find Him inside it. There will be moments when everything around you seems to be going wrong, and you have a choice. You can allow yourself to become consumed by the stress, or you can quiet your mind enough to listen. When seeking God, you'll find that quiet reassurance. You'll feel that it's going to be okay. Not necessarily that everything's going to work out exactly how you want, but assurance that God is with you. I know when I learned that lesson, it changed me. Peace isn't always the absence of chaos. Sometimes peace is knowing that God is with you in the middle of it, and He's growing you to something beyond what you ever could have been without it. So when you feel yourself slipping into, why is this happening? Stop. Put your feet on the floor. Take a slow breath in through your nose and connect to God. As you breathe in, imagine breathing in the peace and grace of God. And as you breathe out, release the stress and worry. This is what I repeat to my kids. Breathe in God's peace, blow out the stress. Breathe in God's peace, blow out the stress. Breathe in God's peace, blow out the stress. Friend, you don't have to figure everything out in that moment. You just have to create enough space to connect with God so you can respond instead of react. I don't know what you're walking through right now. Maybe it's motherhood, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's work or your finances. Maybe it's simply the exhausting accumulation of 100 things. Whatever it is, remember, your hard season doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. Life was never promised to be easy, and difficult doesn't mean hopeless. Your struggle can become a classroom. Your frustration can become information. Your weakness can become an invitation to depend on God. Your pressure can become your strength. And what feels like it's pressing you down today may become the very thing you eventually stand on. Don't let the struggle convince you that you're powerless. Get curious, ask questions, look for the lesson, and draw in closer to God. God is doing something in you, even when you can't see it, because maybe, just maybe, you aren't being crushed by the pressure. Maybe you're being formed by it. And one day you'll look back on this season and realize you are becoming the woman, the mom that God created you to be. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Conquer Mom Stress. If today's conversation encouraged you, hit follow and leave a review. That lets me know that these episodes are hitting the topics you need. And while you're there, share this podcast with another mom who might need to hear it. Your thoughtfulness might just be what she needs to get through the day. Remember, this is your place to pause, rest, and start conquering mom stress, one small step at a time. Motherhood isn't meant to drain the life out of you. It's meant to be lived with joy, even on the messy days. And together, we're going to find that joy again.